2-minute warning, 2-minute warning.
Covert and Lindauer. Tom Barr. Freaky Friday with the Woo Crew. The Gematria Effect with Zachary. Phoenix Rising Radio with Phoenix. Quantum Connections with Lucky. And dozens more. Did you know you can listen from any telephone by dialing 641-793-7117? Or call into your favorite show, toll-free at 833-TFR-LIVE. Uncensored talk and news you won't hear in the mainstream media. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
Church shooting, Afghan ceasefire. I'm Evan Haining.
Today, evil walked boldly among us.
The evil Tarrant County Sheriff Bill E. Wayborn refers to is the gunman who opened fire during services at the West Freeway Church of Christ in White Settlement, Texas. 2 churchgoers were hit before 2 armed parishioners returned fire and hit the shooter. 1 victim and the shooter died. The second is in critical condition. An FBI special agent in charge, Matthew DeSarno, says the Bureau is working hard to find the shooter's motive.
Working very closely with the victims of this incident, and we will continue to provide partnership and resource support throughout this.
Civil rights icon and Georgia Democratic Congressman John Lewis says he has been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Correspondent Dana Bash says the Selma survivor does not plan to stop working.
He's going to have to be in treatment, but will try to vote and to participate in the work of Congress as much as he can.
The Associated Press is reporting that Taliban forces in Afghanistan have agreed to a temporary nationwide ceasefire. Correspondent Jan Johnson reports it's to allow for the signing of a peace agreement with the U.S.
The ruling council reportedly agreed to a pause in the fighting for 10 days, during which a peace agreement with the U.S. could be signed. Crucial to the deal, a pledge from the Taliban demanded by Washington that Afghanistan will not be used as a staging base for terrorism.
Meanwhile, U.S. forces have carried out airstrikes in Iraq and Syria. Correspondent Barbara Starr says facilities tied to Iran-backed Hezbollah fighters were hit.
The targets were command and control and weapons storage ammo sites. So what they were going after really was the capability for any additional strikes by this militia group to happen.
The U.S. called them precision defensive strikes. I'm Evan Haining.
You must unite what is inside us.
We are TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
And greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where the past meets the future. In here, the results are always positive. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. This is the final broadcast for the year 2019. And next week, we will begin the Roaring Twenties. It is the year of action. That means you have to get off the porch, and we'll go do something really grand. This is going to be an amazing decade. Let's start it off with a bang. I also wanted to wish all of you a happy new year. If I don't see you, which I won't, and between now and New Year's Eve, be safe, be warm and dry, and above all else, be in love. So let's begin with the Religion of Peace report. We've had a heck of a week in the last 7 days. The Religion of Peace has conducted 30 attacks. In these 30 attacks, they've killed 177 innocent people, injured 198 innocent people. They've only conducted 2 suicide blasts, but they spread their mayhem across 9 countries, including the United States. Our heart goes out to those injured in the jihadist attacks against those celebrating Hanukkah. All right, let's get right to it. And don't forget, we are live on YouTube, and we are also live at tfrlive.com, tfrlive.com. The phone number is posted right there for you to see. It is 213-233-3998, 213-233-3998. Your last chance of the year to come on live with me on the radio. At 8:30, I'm going to try to bring in from the UK. It's a little late over there, Tracy Ash. It would be good to bring her in for about a half an hour to talk about her new venture to put together a network of global healers. What a powerful thing to do, don't you think, to begin the new year that way? If she comes around, we'll bring her on for half an hour and we'll talk about that effort. I think it's worth it. So let's get right to it. The current financial bubble was set up by none other than, you guessed it, the Clintons. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York made the astonishing announcement this week that it will be pumping a cumulative $2.93 trillion into Wall Street trading houses between December 16th and January 14th, less than a month. And that's on top of the $360 billion in liquidity that is pumping into the markets by buying back 80 or 60 billion a month in treasury bills from its primary dealers. That's a little like paying off your house mortgage with a credit card. The Fed's excuse for opening its self-created money spigots to the tune of trillions of dollars to Wall Street's trading houses, a replay of what it did secretly during the financial crisis of 2007 to 2010. I'm sure you were around for that. I was. My business was. Is that this is simply a technical fix for allowing bank reserves at the Fed to shrink too far. But that's just a symptom. That's not the cause. Okay, that's not the disease. The facts on the ground strongly support the argument that the Fed itself created this mess by rubber stamping Clinton-Bush bank mergers that allowed just 5 banks out of 5,000 in existence in the United States to now constitute the core of the U.S. financial system. See, every time you get paid, every time you buy something, every time you sell something, that money goes into the bank and it is extracted to one of these 5 central banks. The regional banks, the local banks, they're left without cash, just enough to get through the day. Some of them don't have enough to get through the night. And that's why this liquidity has to be created. It's for them. The key moral hazard act by the Federal Reserve that set the epic financial collapse of 2008 into motion and actually lit the fuse for the Fed's latest multi-trillion-dollar money spigot to Wall Street was the Federal Reserve's approval on September 23, 1998, of the merger of Travelers Group, their big insurance company, the ones with the red umbrella, and Salomon Brothers and the retail brokerage firm Smith Barney. And that all merged with a terrible black company called Citicorp. And Citicorp, as you know, actively shorts with naked shares. These are shares that are created out of nothing. Naked shorts startups and businesses with marginal profits and destroys them as a way of creating extra money. Anyway, they're the parent of the large federally insured commercial bank, Citibank, to form the mega Wall Street universal bank Citigroup. So you got Citicorp, Citibank, and Citigroup. Now, just 10 years after the Fed approved this merger, Citigroup would implode and receive the largest secret infusion of cash from the Fed in U.S. banking history. From December 2007 to July 2010, the New York Fed secretly funneled a cumulative $2.65 trillion into Citigroup to shore up its sinking hull. The Federal Reserve approved that merger in stark violation of the Glass-Steagall Act and had prevented federally insured deposit-taking banks from merging with investment banks. That's what Glass-Steagall was designed to do. When they did this, it was because most of Glass-Steagall had already been stepped on. And when Bill Clinton repealed Glass-Steagall in 1993, it really didn't do anything other than allow them to do it without any kind of lawsuit or retribution from Congress. That signing of that bill in 1993 is what tanked everything in 2008 and is what is hurting our financial system today. Now, got to go back to 1933, because 1933 is when Glass-Steagall was passed. It was passed for a specific reason, and that was to prevent banks from merging with brokerage houses, people that sold stock and gambled basically on the stock market. Banks were not allowed to merge with them, and that's exactly what happened. The 1933 U.S. Senate had held public hearings for more than 2 years, and what they ferreted out was that it was an intentional act brought about by self-dealing and corruption on the part of Wall Street investment banks that had collapsed the stock market in 1929. That's what happened. That is exactly what happened. Now, you got to understand, this was all engineered, and it released the Great Depression, which didn't just destroy America, it destroyed the world. The Hoover economy was creating a middle class that had real buying power, and they simply could not allow that to continue. So they crushed the economy, allowing only the biggest investors to survive. Well, we're right back there. 5,000 small banks and regional banks are all controlled by 5 of these national banks. So we're right back there, right back where we were. We have no Glass-Steagall in place. The liquidity is pretty much gone. Most of these regional banks don't have enough cash to offset their loan balances, so they have to borrow money overnight. That money started out at somewhere around $85 billion a month, and now it's at $100 billion a night. Yeah, $100 billion a night. Now, they pay it back the next day because the economy is going really well and cash is flowing well. But, you know, cash flow is like a big wheel that turns. As long as it's rolling, as long as that money's coming in one side, going around the other side, and coming back again, everything's wonderful. Everything just keeps going. Your paychecks go in the bank, and your debit cards work on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the rest of the week. But as soon as that wheel stops, all that debt comes right back around and slaps the whole system in the head a few days later. There's no way back from that. A total collapse is the only thing that can happen. So the 1933 legislation created federal insurance for bank deposits, and it barred Wall Street's casino investment banks from ever getting their hands on mom and pop deposits in commercial banks and using those to make high-risk gambles in the stock market. But we're right back there again. To this day, the FDIC that you hear about all the time, it's just an empty promise. They say they insure up to $120,000, but that is just the principal. That's not the interest. And if you read the fine print, they have 10 years to repay you if the bank goes broke. You ready to do without your principal for 10 years? I know a lot of people have more than that in the bank, but they spread it around to a lot of different banks. So their hope is that all the banks won't go broke at the same time. And what the really smart people are doing that have a lot of money is they're turning their money into assets. What does that mean? Well, it means they're going into these downtown areas. I was going to say inner city, but that's not quite exactly right. They go into the downtown areas and they buy depressed real estate, and then they turn that depressed real estate. A lot of it is old retail, old factories, old apartment buildings, stuff like that, and they upgrade all this and turn them into condos, and they either rent them out or sell them commercially for a lot of money. And so what they're doing is they're facelifting a lot of the downtown areas. It's happening in Nashville. It's happening in Charlotte, in the NODA area, what we call the North Davidson district. It's happening in Philadelphia. It's happening in Charlotte. In Chattanooga. It's happening all over the country. Now, this has several effects. First of all, it drives all the low-income people out of the city. So now they're driven out into the suburbs where they can't afford to live. So it's created kind of a crisis there. Now, your state may have a 3% unemployment rate, but North Carolina, South Carolina, and 7 other states, we're at 7%. North Carolina still has a 7% unemployment. And in my age group, the over 55, it's 20%. 20% unemployment. That's way worse than the Great Depression, I'm telling you. People my age are not working in their careers for which they have incredible skills. No, they're greeters at Walmart. They're contractors like me. We work 6, 8, maybe 9 months a year at best. Why? Because these companies need our skills, but they don't want to pay us insurance. They don't want to pay us the actual cost of having an employee. So they hire us as contractors. We come in and work at our own risk because we have no choice. Unemployment's still 7% in North Carolina. Those are Obama numbers, worse than Obama numbers. But there are 9 states that are in that kind of shape. So I want to reiterate at 8:30 Eastern Time, I'm going to try to bring Tracy Ash on. She is working on building a global network of healers. I think it's a worthy cause. I want her to come on and talk about it if she's up. She's in the UK, which is 6 hours ahead of us, so it's early in the morning there already. All right, let's get to the next story. By the way, don't forget the call-in line is 213-233-3998. You can call in and just say Happy New Year, and I'm okay with that. Everything's good. A lot of people are asking me the question, and they're asking pundits all over the world this question. Why? Why did Pelosi do it? Why the big rush to get this impeachment on the boards and then hold back on the articles, giving them to the Senate? What's going on here? This is like out of a spy novel. It's unbelievable how much subterfuge and how much murder and graft and embezzlement and quid quo pro. My God, how does a woman hold an entire political party hostage? How does she tell them, look, if you don't vote yes on this impeachment, I'm giving you no money to run in 2020. None. You got to borrow it or get your rich friends to put it up. And if you don't have any rich friends, you better vote yes on impeachment. And so they held their nose, and they had no choice. She held an entire party hostage. So the former New York City mayor, America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani, now the personal lawyer for President Trump, has secured bank and court records. Now, we're not talking about Russia narrative. We're not talking about propaganda. We're talking about the actual bank records and court records that show a millions of dollars money trail leading from Ukraine to a fake company in Latvia, and then to Cyprus, and finally to the board members of Burisma, the Ukrainian natural gas firm whose board included Hunter Biden and business partner Devon Archer. We also have now learned that Nancy Pelosi's son, John Kerry's stepson, and, well, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but Dunang Dick, yes, it's true, Dunang Dick Blumenthal, also involved in Burisma. Now, this is what he said a couple of days ago, Rudy. He said, and I quote, "I'm in a lot of trouble. I've uncovered an 8-year-long money laundering system that started probably in 2012 with $7.5 billion laundered by Viktor Yanukovych to the Ukraine president at the time. Pro-Russian president at the time. He laundered through American institutions, interestingly, all of which controlled by Democrats." Close quote. Now that's some frightening stuff. Giuliani said the corruption in Ukraine involving American entities, Democrat run, most likely started in 2012 during the Obama administration and involved at least two major schemes, one for $7.5 billion and another for $5 billion. That's $12.5 billion. You know what, Earth Explorers? That's real money. Now, Giuliani actually has the evidence. He has the evidence. My question is, does this have to go to trial in the Senate? No. This should be turned over to the FBI, the world's best quantitative accountants, and they should validate every single penny that we're talking about in these bank records and these court records, and they should go after them. All of them. And they should seize their money, their houses, their planes, their boats, their investments, seize it all, and make restitution. Now, the Democrats have known this for weeks, and many people are speculating that is the reason they moved with lightning speed to impeach President Trump. They allegedly want this investigation squashed, and what they're trying to do is make the entire investigation look like Russian propaganda. You heard Nadlis, right? You heard Gerald Nadlis on the floor of the House say it to his name escapes me right at the moment. I can see his face. Said that he was surprised that another colleague in Congress would introduce Russian propaganda as evidence in the Congress. Well, I got to tell you, that infuriated him, absolutely infuriated him, because this is actually factual information. Now, apparently, again, this is speculation. The alleged reason Nancy Pelosi has not transmitted the articles of impeachment to the U.S. Senate is that's allegedly the offer. If Trump makes the investigation of Democrat money laundering go away, guess what? Yep, the impeachment goes away. Now, does it all start to make sense to you? Do you all get it? It's not a spy novel. The Democrats appear to be caught by the short hairs if they don't shave them off. They're apparently guilty as sin, and they allegedly know it. This money laundering may have been the reason behind Hillary Clinton's widely publicized campaign outburst back in September of 2016. You remember 2 months before the actual election, when the two major party candidates, Trump and Clinton, separately sat for interviews with Matt Lauer before he was, arrested or at least accused of locking co-eds in his office and, well, doing whatever his news actors do. After the event, a few reports asserted that the Clinton campaign had expressed disgruntlement that Lauer had not been nearly as tough in his questioning of Trump as he had been with the Democrat candidate. You remember the questions, right? I thought, oh, Matt, you've stepped in, and now you can't ask HRC. You can't ask those kinds of questions. Well, those news reports included a widely circulated article holding that Clinton engaged in a prolonged, obscenity-filled tirade immediately following her forum interview with Matt, a meltdown that supposedly included her throwing a water glass at a staffer's head and demanding that Matt Lauer be fired, which he was, in disgrace. One of the quotes used in that article showed Hillary Clinton allegedly saying that they would all swing from nooses if she failed to win the election. Now here they are. They're facing a rhetorical noose of possible prison, orange jumpsuits, ankle chains. Funny how those little tidbits now all fit together, isn't it? The trouble for Democrats is that Trump ain't going to stop. He's not going to trade. That's not going to happen. He will proceed with investigations, and he will proceed with the prosecutions. And the more Democrats try to squash it, the worse it's going to get for them. When Rudy Giuliani said he's in trouble because he uncovered this, he's right. He is right. The people he's exposing make the mafia look like flower merchants. And many people believe they will not hesitate to get rid of him to protect themselves. Now, he says, look, I took down the mob in New York City. I faced off with some bad characters before. They don't scare me. Well, maybe so. Maybe so. But they have a way to get to you because they got guys like John Brennan on their side. They got Clapper. They have former Attorney General Loretta Lynch. These are the baddest people on earth, okay? And they stand to lose everything if you win. So stay safe, Mayor. We need you. All right, let's... I don't see a message from Tracy. We have about 2 minutes for this segment is over. I will try her during the break. If she doesn't come on, we'll try again. I wouldn't blame her a bit for sleeping, but she was up late last night, and I know this because, I kind of suffer from insomnia myself, and I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning surfing around myself, so I understand. Okay, it looks like we have a caller in Saskatchewan, Canada. We have a couple of minutes. Let's go ahead and bring it on. What's on your mind, Canada? How are you doing?
Well, I'm fine. Hey, Brooks, I just wanted to wish a happy new year to you and the listeners. You have, such a great radio presence, and your show always has something intelligent in it, so I just want to wish a happy new year to you and the listeners, and that's all I wanted to call about.
Wow. Thank you, guys, up there, you and your party up there. Happy New Year to yourself. Stay warm up there in Saskatchewan. Thanks for calling in.
All right, have a great night.
You too. All right, see, that's how simple it is. All you got to do, 213-233-3998. I'll take those all night long. While we're at it, January 11th, I am going to have a webinar. You can access it by going to brooksagnew.com, brooksagnew.com. Let me switch over to that page so you can see that. The webinars are under the link called Webinars. So simple. It starts at noon Eastern Time. So that's easy for you. If you're on the West Coast, it's 9 a.m. in the morning. It'll last for a few hours, so stay in your pajamas if you want to. We're going to go through the hour-and-a-half lecture, and then we're going to go through a lecture on how to fill out a journal and things like that. And then there'll be other things that we can do. If you're not registered, it is so simple. All you have to do is click the button, select the date. You got January 11th, you got one in February, you got one in March. It's the same webinar all 3 times. I promise it'll be the best $47 you spent on yourself, and you might as well get started on the year early. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away.
From the dawn of man, we have turned to nature to help attain balance within ourselves. But somewhere, we
Well, no luck with Tracy. We will we'll just carry on then. News will be over in about 51 seconds. So YouTubers, just hang out. Hang out. We'll be all right. Everything's under control. You're still alive. Don't worry about it. You haven't lost anything. We'll try her again in just a little bit and make sure that she's ready to go. We have about 30 seconds to go, and we'll bring the studio back in. Appreciate you all being there. Thanks, everyone, for being there. Gosh, Donnie and what is it, Mystican? I like that. Hitchhiker. Terry's out there. Free messages out there. Hitchhiker. MG's there. Good. It's going to be a good program tonight. Yes, it is a scarab. This is a scarab, and on the back of it is a ankh. See the Egyptian ankh on the back? Yeah, if I can turn that right for the camera. So there you go. All right, let's bring the studio back in. We'll rock. Hey, thanks for being part of America Free Radio. We're coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. Yeah, quick hi. Half Q, thanks for being out there. Couldn't do it without you. Great to have you. This is X Squared Radio, but we're at the America Free Radio Studios east of the Appalachian Mountains, and we are part of the Truth Frequency Radio Network. This is where the Truth Freaks hang out, and we're not afraid to let our Truth Freak flag fly. You could be part of the program tonight easily by calling the number on your screen right there. If you're a part of YouTube, if you're not, you can get it at 213-233-3998, 213-233-3998. Good to have you with us here. Okay, let's get back to it. Chat room was just blazing away. We'll try to bring Tracy on again here in the next half hour. All right, Russia is building a hypersonic cruise missile. Now, I don't know if you know how significant this is. Cruise missiles, the reason they're called cruise missiles is because they're powered the entire way that they go. So once they launch from the boat or from the ground launch pad, they fly low. They're designed to fly underneath the radar, like 100 feet off the ground. They're also typically, almost by design, subsonic, which means they fly at about 600 miles an hour. Now, that's fast. That's fast. And if you're on the ground, like in a city or in the woods or something, you don't hear these things coming. I mean, just they're right overhead. If you ever see a jet fly over that fast, really low, it's quick. It's like a split second and it's gone. But if you're watching one, say, from the mountains and it's flying in the low areas of the valleys, you could see it for a long way. And you can shoot these things down. They can be shot down, and they have been shot down. They've been shot down with you know, a skilled machine gunner can bring one down from the ground. It's not that difficult to do once you've had some practice. Oh, good. Colleen says she saw me at Contact in the Desert and was very impressed with me. Well, I'm going to be there again in May, so good to see you out there again. I'm going to be doing two presentations at Contact. One is on asteroid mining. Oh, yeah, this is all, you know, some of it is kind of out there, but all of this is current technology or just a little bit to develop yet technology. We're not talking about anti-gravity drives or faster than light drives or anything like that, just regular old asteroid mining as part of the Cislunar and Cismars programs. It will be very informative. I'm also going to be giving my Remembering the Future lecture. This was as a workshop last year, or this year actually, when I was at the Contact in May, and not many people knew about it. I mean, they knew about it if they went to the website, but you know, when you go to Contact, you buy a ticket and then you buy a workshop ticket, and you could spend the workshop ticket anywhere you want. And the way the speakers get paid, they get paid a piece of that workshop ticket. If you go in the door and you drop that in the envelope, we get a piece of that ticket. That's how we get paid. So not many people knew about Remembering the Future, and even fewer people knew me there because I'm not a regular at Contact in the Desert, even though I've been on coast to coast lots and lots of times. Well, we had a pretty good crowd, to say the least. We didn't fill the room out, but it was a pretty good crowd. Now, here's the thing. It was voted the #1 presentation at the event. That's saying something because there were some very, very talented people there. This year is going to be better than last year, okay? I promise you, this coming up May, you want to, if you go to any workshop at all, that's the one you need to go to. So, Colleen, I look forward to seeing you out there. Lots of people, about 4,000 people out there last year. So hopefully we try to pack them all into one room for Remembering the Future. All right. Getting back to cruise missiles. What makes a hypersonic cruise missile so dangerous? And the location was not given, although officials had earlier indicated they would be deploying at the Ural Mountains. President Vladimir Putin has said that nuclear-capable missiles can travel more than 20 times the speed of sound. Get that? 20 times the speed of sound. and put Russia ahead of other nations. They have a glide system that affords great maneuverability and could make them impossible to defend against. Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu confirmed what's called the Avant-Garde hypersonic glide vehicle entered service at 10 Moscow time on 27 December, calling it a landmark event. Mr. Putin said on Tuesday of this week the Avant-Garde system would penetrate current and future missile defense systems, adding, not a single country possesses hypersonic weapons, let alone continental range hypersonic weapons. The West and other nations were playing catch-up with us, he said. Typical Russian propaganda, probably. Mr. Putin unveiled the Avant-Garde and other weapon systems at the annual State of the Nation address in March of 2018, likening it to a meteorite and a fireball. In December of 2018, the weapon hit a practice target 6,000 kilometers away. That's pretty close to 4,000 miles. In a test launched at Domorovsky missile base in the southern Ural Mountains. Now, this missile is allegedly invulnerable to intercept by any existing and protective missile defense means. It's mounted on top of an intercontinental ballistic missile. The Avant-Garde can carry a nuclear weapon up to 2 megatons. By the way, it only takes a few kilotons to wipe out one city. Multiple warheads can be installed into one ballistic missile. In a statement, the Pentagon said it would not characterize the Russian claims about the Avant-Garde's capabilities. The U.S. has its own hypersonic missile program, probably hasn't tested it yet, as does China, which has been openly bragging about it being able to take an aircraft carrier out, which in 2014 said it conducted a test flight of such a weapon. On the 26th of November, which was about a month ago, Russia allowed U.S. experts to inspect the Avant-Garde under the rules of the 2010 New START Treaty. The New START Accord, which expires in February of 2021, is the last major nuclear arms control treaty between Russia and the U.S. President Donald Trump said he wanted a new nuclear pact to be signed by both Russia and China. It's hard to determine if Russia's new Avant-Garde hypersonic missile system really has entered service, but President Putin's eagerness to claim bragging rights is to some extent justified. Russia looks to be ahead in the hypersonic stakes. China's also developing such systems, while the U.S. appears to be somewhat behind. But I would say that looks can be deceiving. They can be cruise-type missiles powered throughout their flight, as I said, or they could be carried aloft on board a ballistic missile from which the hypersonic glide vehicle separates and then flies to its target using extremely high altitude, like 80 or 90 miles above the surface. It falls at, anywhere from 8 to 25 times the speed of sound. Of course, as it gets closer to the ground, it begins to have sonic booms, but typically these weapons would strike their target before anybody would hear a thing. And if they happened at night, you would never hear a thing, never see a thing. The thing that makes these dangerous, these are not just glide systems, these are boost glide systems. Now, a glide system, once you release from the ballistic missile, you only have, a certain range that you can strike, because you don't have a lot of maneuverability, because you fly like a brick. You can sort of adjust the wings a little bit, little flights on the sides and steer it, but you're not going to fly, like a parachuter in a chute suit or a glide suit. But these are boost glide systems, and this is what gives them an extreme amount of range. The reentry vehicles put on a trajectory that allows it to enter Earth's atmosphere quite quickly before gliding, unpowered, for hundreds of thousands of kilometers, like they could be anywhere in the world in an hour. It's not so much the speed of the hypersonic weapon alone that counts. It is the extraordinary maneuverability as it glides towards its target. And this poses a huge problem for existing anti-missile defense systems. You can't just say, oh, according to this arch, we think it's going to land right here. And so you set up your missile defense systems and you just, shoot a cone of slugs up at it, hoping to take it to pieces before it strikes the ground. It's not that simple, because these things can move quite a bit. It's sort of like an outfielder going out for a ball that's hit deep into center field, but the ball has a terrible spin on it off the bat, and so it steers itself in the air, and the outfielder has to maneuver quite a bit to get under it and catch it. It's just like that. The glide vehicle's trajectory, surfing along the edge of the atmosphere, as one expert puts it, presents any defensive system with additional problems. And Russia confirms once again that President Putin's focus on bolstering and modernizing Russia's nuclear arsenal, rather than making it bigger, they're making it smarter. Some analysts might well see Russia's development program as a long-term strategy to cope with Washington's abiding interest in anti-missile defenses. The U.S. argument that these are purely designed to counter missiles from rogue states like, Iran or North Korea that don't have this kind of technology. We don't need to protect ourselves against Russia because Russia will never attack us. Whereas Iran or North Korea or Somalia or someplace like that, if they got their hands on a missile, they would. This all comes at a time when the whole network of arms control agreements inherited from the Cold War is collapsing. One crucial treaty, the New START Agreement, is due to expire February 2021, as I said. And they're drafting up a new one. But this new one, I have a feeling, I'm just saying right now, I don't have any source. I just have an intuition that's pretty good on these things. I have a feeling that this agreement's not so much aimed at Russia. It's aimed with Russia. You understand what I'm saying? Russia doesn't want to go to war with us. They might get 1 or 2 strikes in, and that's it. No more Russia. Russia's gone. Russia is a gas station posing as a country. Yes, they have high technology, but they don't have the ability to sustain a long-term war. They would never win. It would be suicide. Putin would never do that. He's a capitalist. He would never do it. I see this New START treaty as almost bringing Russia in as an ally again. Not the Soviets. That's gone. I'm talking about an intelligent trade agreement between Russia and the United States. We're already working with them in space. We're already hitching rides with them. We're already sharing space stations with them. Are you crazy? Now, we don't buy natural gas from them like Europe. We don't have that kind of dependency relationship, but we don't fear Russia. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later because there's a deep-seated hatred of Russia inside our government, not in the elected government, but in the bureaucratic government. And I'm telling you, this hatred is like nothing I've ever seen before. When banana republics change presidents, they elect a new El Presidente, and the new president comes in, he says, okay, take all the old staff out in the backyard and shoot him in the head. You remember that? I mean, that was the way it was done. And we saw when Obama came in, he fired everybody. He just fired everybody. If you had ever voted Republican, if you ever said the word Republican, you were fired. He replaced everybody, except, of course, 140 federal judges, which is kind of a joke, actually. But anyway, the bottom line is, it was like a banana republic. You just changed it over to all sycophants, all people that would just worship you and just follow your orders no matter what. Even if they weren't watching you, you'd follow the orders. Trump did it a little differently. When he came in, he didn't fire everybody. He said Clinton did that. Obama did that. It didn't work out so well for them. So he kept some of them for a long time. Some are still there. And in the bureaucracy, we have this deep-seated hatred for Russia. Because when the election was imminent, when it looked like Trump was going to be elected, you know what they did? They hated Russia so badly that they tracked down and they assassinated all those diplomats, all those Russians that worked with Samantha Power. They killed them, including Kislyak, who's a long-time diplomat. That 25 years he worked in Washington. Everybody worked with Kislyak. They killed them all, like in a 2-week period. That's how badly they hate these people. The Yovanovitches and the Vidmans, they hate the Russians so badly that they didn't want to see any of these money laundering companies and shell companies and nonprofits. They didn't want to see them prosecuted by Ukraine, because this is a big, big money laundering operation that they run. Okay, looks like we have another caller in. Been there for about 8 minutes. Let's go ahead and bring it in. Just says wireless caller. I don't know. It's area code is not one I recognize. Let's go ahead and bring them on. What's on your mind out there?
Hey, it's the New York guy. I got a cell phone. Things happen. I moved and stuff. So,
hey, how are you?
INTP guy.
Yeah, this is an actor friend of mine. Came down to Charlotte a while ago and got a few acting pieces, and we did a scene read with one of my birth scripts. And this guy's very talented. Yeah, how are you doing, my friend?
Went through some rough times recently, but things are looking up on the bright side a little bit. So happy New Year, Merry Christmas.
Good, good. I'm going to be up there on the 1st in New York.
Are you going to be in New York City?
Well, I'm actually going to be in New Jersey near Newark, but we're going to come down to Manhattan, 2 or 3 days and just bomb around and see what we can see. Don't really have any plans. I'm speaking on the 4th in Hamilton, New Jersey, at the Hilton Garden Inn. And by the way, it's only $20 at the door for those of you listening. But hey, why don't we go have a beer or something?
Again, technically I'm still on probation, but I'm looking into it. I might be able to get off early, like really, really early. Like
nice.
I might be able to get the or whatever drop. So, but one actually, I play Xbox and I play Call of Duty. I met this kid who's on a computer and he's into NASA and that. His name's actually Audio Science. That's his gamer tag. And he's really into the NASA stuff, and he's really hoping that Trump pulls through with the Space Force stuff and that, because he wants to apply for that. He's like 29 or whatever, 28. And I made mention of you, and I'm trying to get him to look into your stuff and that, maybe even give you a call or whatever, so you guys can talk. He's an INFJ, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, that's what he stated that he was.
Nice.
So
there are not many of us out there.
And I also met another kid. He's like 17. He took the test and came out INFJ, but I'm a little iffy still, because when you take the test and that, it takes a while to find out what your personality type really is. But I was talking to him. It seems like he might be an INFJ too. But other than that, when it comes to Trump, quick question. There's that whole him with, you got the Jared Kushner and that, and the whole Israel thing. And it looks like a lot of the people that have been trying to impeach him on the Democrat side are Jewish or whatever. And so I've been listening to a lot of stuff. I don't know if you know True News.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was listening to a couple of their videos and that, and they're saying that the Jews have like a Warren faction in their, society or whatever. And so I'm just wondering if you know anything about that, and if it's possible, because it seems, if it's true what they're saying about how a lot of these Jewish people are the ones that are trying to impeach Trump, it kind of doesn't make sense, because he is doing a lot for, the whole, he's passing bills and stuff of that nature, and he's for Israel. So I'm just wondering if you know anything about that stuff.
Well, I do know that there's a difference between Israel and Jews. Now, Israel as a country, I think President Trump is very supportive. He moved the embassy. He's helping them in a lot of different ways, not just economic, but also technology. Jews, in and of themselves, they have factions inside their organization. They have people that are staunch Democrat because they're staunch socialists. They want socialism, and it doesn't matter how it comes about. Which is kind of strange to me because it was socialism that actually just about wiped them out. But there are also other Jews who are more devout and who realize that, they know which side the bread is buttered on, and the side that has the butter on it is capitalism. And as a society, they have done very well with it. They do business with one another. They help one another to get into business. They support one another. And this is what community is all about. And they've been doing it for thousands of years. But those three factions, I don't think they talk to each other. I really don't. And so I don't really understand, to me, why a Jew in America would ever vote for Democrat. I just don't understand it.
Okay. Yeah, when it comes to Israel, isn't Israel a very strategic place, like in the Middle East?
Well, yeah, it is. Because if Israel goes away, anything that resembles a democracy disappears out of the Middle East. And that's one of the main reasons why we keep it there. Sits on the southern edge of Syria. It's bordered by Jordan and other countries, and some are friendly and most are not friendly. They would like to see Israel, or at least the Jews, pushed into the sea, and they would rather see Israel turn into the Levant again. They don't even recognize it on their map. And when guys like Yasser Arafat come to power, and they're able to use terrorism, and they're able to use the bully pulpit of mass media given to them by the UN, because they also hate the Jews terribly, all of them. That's why they gain power. And when you have organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah, who are totally willing to take any weapon you want to give them and shoot it at Israel anytime, no problem, then you have a tinderbox. And this is the situation. I was on the phone with one of my business translators, and she was in Jaffa at the time. And this terrible noise came over the phone, like it sounded like a jet went right through the house. And then the sound of breaking glass and this big boom. And I said, wow, what the hell happened? She said they just shot a rocket, and it went over her house and landed in the street and broke a bunch of windows down the street.
What?
And when I held shrapnel in my hands, I have a picture of it on my phone. Shrapnel from water pipe. You can still see the threads on the pipe. The shrapnel in my hands from a water pipe rocket that was launched by Hamas over into Israel. No guidance at all, just fins welded on the side of it and light it like a homemade rocket. Not really meant to kill anybody, but hopefully it does kill somebody. But they shoot thousands of these things, thousands of them. Just shoot them into Israel.
Like a giant firework?
Like a giant firework, only when it lands, it explodes and breaks windows, and if you happen to be in the street. Now, if you go over to Jaffa, the one thing you notice is on the sidewalk, they have these big sections of concrete culvert, like storm drain, like it's 5 feet in diameter, just a section of it sitting there. And I asked, what the heck is that for? It's just, there's no construction work going on around here. And they said, that's a street bomb shelter. When they hear the rockets, people on the sidewalks run inside this pipe and let the explosion happen, and then they go right back to shopping.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's something else.
That's
it's a crazy place to live. I don't really have any desire to live in Israel, but yes, it is a strategic outpost of democracy in the Middle East.
Okay. And so the one thing that I was thinking about when it comes to the whole impeachment thing and the Democrats celebrating, now I don't really consider the Democrats to be as stupid as what people are, kind of like just touting on what they are. I can see that the people that are following them, the citizens and stuff, American people, no offense to them, but they're pretty dumb because these people are obviously, the Democrats aren't for them at all, and it's just blatantly obvious. But
that's pretty crazy.
I mean,
we got about 30 seconds.
What?
I got about 30 seconds in this segment.
So I was going to say, I could see that the reason why they could be celebrating is because they're destroying America. Like, they're proving to America that the law doesn't mean anything. Like, they're destroying it right in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
And so, to me, I think that's the reason why they might be celebrating, really.
Well, it very well could be. It's despicable. All right, my friend, Happy New Year. We'll talk to you later. Quick break, YouTubers. Hang out, and we'll be right back after this. Going to try Tracy Ash again while we're on break. If she doesn't answer, then we'll let her sleep. We have another caller on hold. 213-233-3998. I'll bring you on in a second, Kentucky. Just hang in there. Got about 2.5 minutes to go before this commercial's over, and then we'll bring the studio back in. By the way, you YouTubers can see this, and you at TFR are on hold with the commercial. But WowieTel is the phone app that you can put on your phone, and you'll be able to make calls internationally for one fixed rate. So you pay one fee per month, and you can call unlimited any number anywhere with satellite clarity. So you don't have to call them up or text them or whatever. Hey, can you put the W app or the S app or the T app or the P app on your phone, and that way I can talk to you for free. Don't cheap it out, people. Just get the app, be in business, and do it the right way. WowieTel.com, and use the promo code BA2019, BA2019, and you can get right in there. No problem. Okay, still no answer from Tracy. I'm not going to bring the news on because I'm kind of sick and tired of hearing it. I know you are too. So I'm just going to leave it on mute for you YouTubers. You can just hang out with me, and we'll talk with one another for another minute and 13 seconds while we're waiting for the news break to be over. Don't forget, you can always go to brooksagnew.com, brooksagnew.com. Look on the webinars link. I promise it's the best $47 you're going to spend on yourself. You're talking with one of the best Six Sigma Master Black Belts in the entire country. You might as well have this kind of skill in your backyard. Believe me, the Fortune 500, they pay very well to have me come to them and solve their problems. If I can solve their problems, I can solve your problems. Why don't you come over and see? January 11th is the first webinar date. There's another one in February. There's another one in March. But I recommend you get started early. Let's go ahead and bring the studio back in.
Police say Thomas was covered with blood when they arrested him and smelled of bleach, which may have been an attempt to eventually cover up his crime. Police say the arrest took only 10 or 15 seconds. I'm Evan Haining.
Wherever you are, make it Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back to the second hour of X Squared Radio here at the America Free Radio Studios, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. We have a caller in Covington, Kentucky. Welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
How you doing tonight, Brooks?
I'm doing great, sir. How are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. I'm doing well. So before I get to the thing I was going to originally get to, I'll actually add on to your last caller's topic because I am a first-generation American. Both my parents come from the Palestinian civilization, so I go to that part of the world frequently, often. And last time I was there, to keep a long story short, I stumbled across some like grenades and artillery that had been used in these fields on the outskirts of the Palestinian territories. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't understand the tension over there. I don't even know why they can't just say, hey, you know, we're done here. Let's just take the fence down and be one country. But I don't see it happening.
I wish it was that simple. I wish it was that simple.
It goes back a long way, these feuds. I tell you, I just don't understand it. I'm first generation American too, and I don't get it.
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, you're preaching the choir, you know.
Hey, I'm Scottish. I mean, we've charged across the frozen tundra lots and lots of times with battle axes in our hands. We're mad fighters, but I don't get this. I just don't understand.
Yeah. I mean, maybe one day something will happen to where there will be less tension. But what I wanted to just ask you tonight, I am one who's very interested in the hard sciences, and I know you're one who is very credited in those hard sciences. What are some ways someone who isn't credited in the hard sciences, what are some ways they can be frequently active in the field, in the sense of, you know,
that's a good question.
Getting hands on getting hands on like certain equipment, or like learning how to build certain things, maybe learning how to engineer things, learning how, I don't know. I find all that stuff very interesting. I recently bought some stuff from the STEM section at Barnes & Noble, just some toys that really caught my attention, and I already assembled them all. And one of them, there's a application you can download that you can program the robot to maneuver all around. And there's 10 different robots you can build out of all these gears and pieces. And it's pretty cool. But
well, here's what I recommend.
What do you think are some?
Here's what I recommend. I will say that the age of the university is just about over. When the Democrats are ready to give you a free education, a free college education, which is worth nothing, actually, because you didn't pay anything for it, and you have all of the knowledge of all of the ages at your fingertips, the age of the university is over. Now, that being said, if you're not, quote, affiliated, you know, you don't have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering or chemical engineering, how do you get a job? Well, there are a variety of ways. First of all, you can hire in as a contractor. And believe me, JPL and Raytheon and all these companies, they hire tons of contractors. And they don't have to have degrees or anything. All you have to have is a skill set. And sometimes you just have to be trainable and have a desire to learn. And they'll put you on the job. Another way, and especially if you're in a city, is to look for what's called an incubator. Now, every single city in America has an incubator. Incubators are for people who have invented something or developed something on either university level or in their garage or their attic or their basement. and they're ready to go to the next step. That is to say, now they need a certified welder to join their team, or now they need a lab in order to mix their goo or whatever it is together. Incubators will give them grants of that facility at which to work, whether it's an auto shop or a lab or a welding shop or something like that. And these incubators need a list of either skilled people or trainable people that will come in and do things at these incubators. It's a great way to get started. And once you get your name onto a project or a platform, you can either go with the platform or you can use it to build your resume and move to the next level. You don't have to have a college degree to do a lot of this. The co-ops that I did at JPL, I was a high school kid. I just had a desire to learn, and I was smart. And now they didn't trust me with very much, and I didn't do a lot, maybe an hour or two a week, but you're around it. You're mixed in it. Now, my two high school friends, Eugene Cercio, well, I didn't mean to use his full name, Gino, and my friend Jim, you know what? They went to work for Hughes. They went to work for Hughes Satellite, and they stayed for over, decades and became, leaders in their industry, either GPS satellites or TV. And I went in the Air Force. We just went different directions. But that's how we all got started. That's how we all got started. You don't have to say, well, I can't do it because I don't have a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. Nonsense. You can get started on a level that will sustain you, excite you, and put you in the middle of it. And a lot of times these places will pay for you to go to school and finish your degree if they need you to have that. I will say this, the industry is moving way faster than the university can keep up. I'm just telling you, practically in the world that we're in now, the university has lost its requirement. They're behind the times. Everything taught at the university is obsolete anyway. So you go for it and don't hold back.
Thanks. That helps a lot.
You're very welcome. I promise you they're out there. And if you don't know where to go to your industrial development board with your city. Just talk to them. It's free. You pay for it anyway with your property taxes, and they will hook you up. I promise you it's out there.
I have one last question.
Sure.
Can you elaborate further on how the university has lost its credibility? That saddens my soul.
Oh, it does. But I'll tell you, it's one word. It's called tenure. What has happened is they've taken the old guard and they have made it impossible to get rid of. And so, believe me, I went to the university. I racked up my student debt. I paid it all off. But I can tell you, those guys are way behind the times. They don't know what's going on. They don't keep up with stuff. They are not on the leading edge of things. Even the best universities are behind where private industry is. What I'm saying when I say the university has lost its place in our society is all knowledge used to be controlled by the higher education. If you needed a higher education, that's the only place you could go. But once the internet really became fully functional, fully searchable, all of the papers, all the textbooks, all the theories and programs and everything that they use or could use is already at your fingertips. If you're self-driven and you can teach yourself, now you may still have some questions, but I guarantee you there are people like me and others out there that will answer those questions. And then you carry on. Just keep moving. Don't think that you go to school for 16 semesters that all of a sudden you're going to be qualified to do some amazing thing. That's just not true. You would not believe the dumbasses I see come out of the PhD program. I got to the point where I said, holy crap, they'll give anybody a PhD. What we had to do in the old days to get one was nothing compared to what they have to do today. Today, it's just a bunch of I dotting and T crossing just to make the university look good. That's not true. My proctor, his name was John Holmes, he said, or Holbrook, he said, you read 4 books in your field every year, and every 4 years is like adding another bachelor's degree onto your skill set. Well, I met that challenge. I didn't read 4 books a year. I read 40 books a year, and I've been doing it since I graduated. 40 books a year in my field. That's why I am where I am in the industry. That's why the Fortune 500 calls me to fix their problems. Don't stop reading, my friend.
I understand. No, I never will stop reading. So for example, in my situation, I am currently a fraud analyst for a regional bank in the area. I got my bachelor's in the arts of political science and history a year ago, and I'm looking to go back for my master's in forensic psychology. Would you consider that specific situation part of universities not having credibility?
Yeah, I would. The one, if I would recommend a master's degree for you in your field, being in banking and in fraud analysis, which is basically quantitative accounting, I would recommend a degree in quality, which would include Six Sigma. It would include problem solving. It would include Boolean logic. It would like quality planning and analysis. That's where the banks are going today. What they're looking for are what are called quality engineers that are driven by mathematics. And you already have the experience in fraud analysis. You add Six Sigma and reach the black belt level with that and master those statistical tools, you'll be formidable. You'll be in the $95,000 a year range easy at a bank.
You said degree in quality?
Quality. Check it out. I'm telling you, it's out there. Every school teaches it. It's a total science. It's what college is it in? Like within a university? Yeah, every university has a degree that they offer in quality. It is advanced statistics. Now, all the engineers have to take some of these courses because they got to know how to treat data. But a degree in quality goes beyond that, and a master's degree in quality will make you formidable. And I would go ahead and take the Certified Quality Engineers exam and pass it. Become a CQE. You go to a bank, you can just about write your own paycheck.
I will definitely look further into that.
There you go. See, you guys could get all this by coming to my webinars on January 11th. I got skills. Hey, I appreciate the call, my friend. Merry Christmas belated, and have a great new year. It's going to be the roaring 20s.
You as well. Have a good time.
All right, bye-bye. All right, let's see what we got here in the chat room. Wow, so many people. I'm just overwhelmed. I'm so humbled that you're all there and that you're keeping this conversation going. Thank you so much. Becoming the Phoenix, that's new. Interesting. Read the Goddess versus the Alphabet. Interesting. Put the author in there for me, would you? I'll look that up. And Festus, will banks survive within a decade? Yes, they will. And the reason is because you've got to have a contract to pay. You have to have currency, and you have to have a way to move the promise to pay from one place to another. Like, I can't go to Amazon unless Amazon has a bank that they agree to take my promise to pay from. They don't agree, for instance, to take money from PayPal. Okay? Amazon will not even recognize PayPal, even though it's one of the largest banks in the country. Kind of silly, isn't it? They just don't recognize PayPal. Now, you can use Amazon Pay, you can use Apple Pay, you can use your debit card, but you can't use PayPal. You see how silly that is? Well, if the banks get to a situation where certain companies will not do business with them, then they lose their relevance. Yes, I think there's room for banks, but I think that banks have to go back to not being part of the gambling process. No more stocks, no more insurance, just bank. That's it. Just have credit cards and just make loans and just do what you do. And you don't need to have people making $50 million a year off of us and a salary from a bank. What's that, MG? I'm kidding about getting in. Okay. There's way more going on in the chat room than I can keep up with. Let's get back to what I'm talking about. As a Six Sigma Master Black Belt, one of the challenges that I thought I would take on my own is how to come up with the perfect voting process. Don't you think that's a good idea? I think it is. By now, you know I'm one of the most accomplished quality process engineers in the country. If you don't, well, I got a long list of references. I've solved the hardest problems for the Fortune 500 for more than 3 decades. I get well paid, and my skills have either saved or created more than 10,000 jobs in America alone. Hey, I think I got, oh my gosh. Wow. I just got a donation in the top chat that's just blowing me away. I am humbled. Christine gives $100 and she says, "You make me smarter every time I watch." Wow. I'm blown away. Merry Christmas to you, and it is going to be a marvelous new year, I promise. So that's just really got me kind of choked up. That's pretty amazing. Thank you very much. State by state, voting is full of fraud. It's full of corruption. It's full of tampering. So I designed a foolproof system to make sure we never have a problem with criminal voting ever again. This is a system that will work. So President Trump, if you're listening tonight, sometimes I think that he does. I know Rush Limbaugh may listen because tomorrow at noon Eastern time when he comes on, I swear he uses my same terminology. But listen closely, because this will work. The first thing that needs to happen is that all the voter rolls need to be erased, okay? Control-Alt-Delete. Just wipe it out. We're going to start with a brand new hard drive, okay? Each eligible person who wishes to vote brings a birth certificate or passport to the driver's license office anytime in the next 6 months. That's plenty of time to get everybody in the entire state. They have their facial picture taken, which will be stored in a state voter database. Step number 4 is they will be issued a voter registration card with their biometric data encrypted on a 2D barcode. Step 5, when that person goes to vote, the card is scanned into the machine. The person's face will be matched with the one on file, just like it is down here at Planet Fitness where I work out. I scan my little 1D barcode and my picture pops up on the screen. They match my face with my face and I'm in. And that's at the gym. I do it every single time I go to the gym. It's easy. It's already out there. Once that match happens, the ballot is now enabled. Step number 6, the person casts their vote, which is copied in no fewer than 2 databases to prevent vote flipping. Number 7, the blind copy is held at secure locations. It acts as the audit copy of the record so the state cannot change the vote count. Number 8, a person with a voter ID can cast a single absentee vote from any state, because they will have the same reader. That vote will be sent instantly to the state of origin, checked in the same manner, and counted. There will never be a need for another paper absentee vote that is in risk of being harvested and counted illegally. That industry is over. Number 9, no poll totals will be released to the public until the last poll on the West Coast closes. There will be no more, and Trump wins Florida, and Trump wins Alabama, and Trump wins New Mexico, because the people on the West Coast hear all that and they go, oh, God, what's the point? I'm not going to vote. No poll announcements until the polls close on the West Coast. And number 11, all attempts to vote fraudulently can be detected and stopped immediately and will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. This will more than likely drop at least 10 million people from the old state databases nationwide. These people are dead. They are the absent and the illegal. The database can be interlinked between states to check for duplicates. It can also detect voters who have been convicted of felonies or who have died. See how that works? Problem solved. Voter fraud goes away forever. Just let me extend my thanks again. Christine Daly, thank you so much for your $100 donation to America Free Radio. Very, very deeply felt. Thank you so much. Look at all those purple hearts out there. Wow, really great. Becoming the Phoenix. Thank you so much for supporting that. Yeah, really, really humbling. Thank you very much. All right, let's talk about some asteroid mining. We got about 3 minutes left in this segment. Not going to have enough to fully address this, so we'll carry it through. We'll try Tracy Ash again during the break. After that, it's just going to be a little too late over there in the UK. Now, researchers have found the mineral. It's called edskatite, which is a phase that iron reaches after cooling down after being smelted into steel. And they found it on a meteorite on this planet. It really marks the first time it's been discovered in nature. Hold on a second. I think I see another top chat. Yes, I do. Look at that. Wow. Merry Christmas to you. Zaid has given $20. Zaid is a listener that has been on for a while. He's from Kentucky. That's the guy that guess it just called. Thanks for the good link, good talk. Yes, my absolute pleasure. And Zaid, you might consider coming to the webinar on the 11th. brooksagnew.com. All the way to the left on the menu, you'll see the link for webinars. Sign up there. There's 5.5 hours more of good stuff like this, and this time we're face to face. It's a much smaller group. Instead of me and a million of my closest friends, it's 7 to 10 people, and I promise we'll get a lot finer detail with some links in there. Now that I know what you're looking for, I'll give you some actual links to go to, and it'll be well worth the $47, I promise. All right. Edskatite. The mineral was discovered in the Wedderburn meteorite. It's a lemon-sized piece of metal, first found in Australia in 1951, subsequently kept in nearby museums in Victoria. The meteorite had an abundance of carbon in it. Now, you know what happens when you get iron very, very hot and then you throw carbon on it, right? No? Well, it was kind of discovered by accident. They were making horseshoes. And what they do is they make them and pound them out. Of course, the iron's red hot. And then they would throw the horseshoe outside in the snow, which would then quench the horseshoe, right? But one time they threw the horseshoe out the window into the snow, and it landed in a cow pie. Yeah, it landed in a great, big, fresh, steaming pile of cow poo. Well, a cow poo is made of carbon, most of it. And what happened is it turned the horseshoe black, hence the term black iron, hence the term edskatite. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away. All right, we're giving Tracy one more try. Over there in the UK, it's a little bit late. It's about 6 hours ahead of us, so probably going to be too early in the morning for her. If she doesn't come on, that's no problem. We'll try another time, or maybe we'll do a recorded interview with her and post it at the website for you to access. I like the live programs just because of this kind of interaction. Doesn't look like she's going to pick up, so that's okay. No problem. Yeah. Okay, we've got that. And by the way, I appreciate all of you responding the way you did to requests to pick up a copy of one of my books and provide them to your friends and family for Christmas. That went very well. We sold quite a few books this month. I'd like to keep it going in January, but that's typically not what happens. Book sales drop off quite a bit in January. But we will be speaking on January 4th, which is a Saturday, in Hamilton, New Jersey. And in Hamilton, New Jersey is the Hilton Garden Inn. Okay, I'll post the address and everything in the comments below here. But it's easy to find. It is $20 at the door, and it begins around noon, and it's going to go on until early evening. There are a couple of speakers. I'm one of them. I'm going to give the Remembering the Future, and you'll get an autographed copy of the book. $20 is about as cheap as it gets. So if you're anywhere within a couple hours drive of Hamilton, New Jersey, I will see you on the 4th there, and we'll have a lot of fun. You know, always meeting people face to face is really great. And then after that, in March, we're going to be in Sedona, Arizona. All of the events you can find out by going to brooksagnew.com, and click on the upcoming events tab, upcoming events, and you'll see everything. Everywhere I'm speaking, I will try to keep that as current as I can. It changes all the time as we book out the year. So we'll join the studio now. Well, I'll wait about 8 more seconds here. That way we don't have to listen to the news. All right, let's go ahead and add him back in.
Real people, real radio. Wherever you are, make it TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
Okay, let's get after it again. We were talking about asteroid mining, and what brought this up was the meteorite of escatite that was discovered. And we talked about black iron, how it was discovered, throwing horseshoes out into the snow into a cow pie. And what happened is the black iron resisted rusting, which is a really big deal. And the properties of the iron, it was much harder, and it was more resilient and held up better. And really, this is the first time that carbon steel, had been, recovered in nature. Usually, we had to develop it, as a science. So they discovered about 500 to 600,000 minerals in the lab, but fewer than 6,000 that nature had done by itself. A Caltech team took a look at the meteorite to study in 2018 and found a mineral that they called escatite, after the University of Hawaii's Edward Scott. Although scientists had found the mineral in smelters before, it had never been seen naturally occurring in nature, and therefore was not named until now. The meteorite likely came from a destroyed planet, which would have formed from a mass of asteroids that, once large enough, formed a molten core due to the rock's natural radioactivity. All rocks, to some degree, are a little bit radioactive, said Australian National University planetary scientist Jeffrey Bonning. So this planet, it starts to melt inside. The planet was eventually destroyed, possibly from an impact from another planet, a moon, or an asteroid, which sent debris across the solar system. And, that's how it happens. Now, what I'm going to be lecturing on in May at Contact in the Desert on asteroid mining actually involves going out to the asteroid belt, finding an asteroid with the right mineral content or water content in some cases that we're looking for, and then grabbing onto that asteroid and physically either carving it up or moving it to another location where it can be used by an industry. Now, as you know, that there's a television series that came out originally on Sci-Fi called The Expanse. It was okay on Sci-Fi. Sci-Fi Channel has a kind of a limited budget, and they don't do very many original movies anyway. But the concept caught on because the writing was very good, and the scientific feasibility of asteroid mining has been around for a long, long time. In fact, and I've told this story before on this program, when I was in the 8th grade in Southern California, I was one of the top math students in the state. And so the newspaper came to interview me at the school. And I didn't know squat about, giving an interview then, but they asked me, the reporter asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I didn't hesitate. I said, I want to be an asteroid miner. Well, she said, is that something you just thought up, or are you thinking about doing it in the future? And I said, no, it's something I remembered. And that she didn't really know how to respond to. I was pretty weird even back then. The point is that it makes a lot of sense. You find an asteroid that's virtually all titanium, or the entire asteroid is diamond or gold or platinum, or is, for that matter, water, like frozen ice, a big old Everest-sized asteroid that's nothing but water. You can feed that minerals to either orbiting complexes that can process that into components that can be used for bigger machines. And you can also sustain life, and you can also create energy. So this is where asteroid mining came from. Now, in the TV series, human race is about 200 years in the future. There are 20 billion people living on the earth, ruled by an organization called the UN. Like, what is that all about? But anyway, they discover fusion drive, and not faster than light, but fusion drive, and they're able to expand out into the solar system. They get as far as the moon, and they set up Luna, and they get as far as Mars, and they set up a Mars colony. But they need raw materials out there, and it ain't coming from Earth. So they go to the asteroid belt, and that's the fourth faction. So you have Earth, you have Luna, you have Martians, and you have what are called the Belters. The Belters, the organization that goes out, ragtag entrepreneurs with different constructions of ships, with different capabilities, and they mine asteroids and sell the goods. Now, obviously, they don't have enough money to buy their own ships, but they man them. And what happens is they kind of become a loosey-goosey kind of pirate sort of colony of unorganized colony of people that live in zero gravity. And they call themselves the Belters. And the Belters call the people that live in Mars and Moon and the Earth, they call them inners because they're inside the asteroid belt. And the 4 seasons that have now been completed, by the way, I've seen all 4 seasons twice. I say, they exploit the characteristics of humanity and human society, and you see it divide out into these 4 factions. Of course, they're all the time conflicting with one another, and there are wars of one kind or another going on all the time. And then they come in contact with an alien life form called the proto-molecule. I'm not going to spoil the story for you, but this is where science fiction kind of catches up with real science. And although we're not doing it yet, with the advent of the Space Force and the idea that we're moving out into space with this kind of technology, with this kind of human presence, it is inevitable that colonies will be formed. And I have said it before, and I will say it again, he who controls the moon will control the earth for a long time because it's the high ground. All right, let's talk a little bit about what's going on with this entire gun control thing. It's kind of getting out of hand because in Virginia, we talked about this last week, the flashpoint that leaked out into the news. Virginia has now become ground zero for the tyranny of government and the liberal agenda to take our guns and to destroy our Constitution. And this is not just about Virginia and, you know, we need to rally and support them there and all that. It isn't about that. You see, the governor of Virginia, his name is Ralph Northam, you know, the baby killer guy, is planning on deploying the Virginia National Guard to seize weapons in Second Amendment sanctuary counties. Spokesmen with the National Guard say, don't get all riled up. We haven't agreed to do that. No orders have been given yet. I definitely encourage everybody to be patient while we allow the elected officials to work through the legislative process. The National Guard says that they have not received any requests from the governor or anyone on his staff about serving in a law enforcement role related to any proposed legislation. The Virginia militia team, the system of citizens that are armed who wish to protect the state from this kind of stuff, as a compulsory service composed of the body of the people trained to arms as envisioned by George Mason. Now, we got to go back a ways to 1771, but it goes back a long, long way. The militia became statutorily composed of the volunteer and unorganized militia. In 1771, the Virginia Bill of Rights under Article 1, Section 13 was changed to the following by popular vote. And this is what it says, and I quote, that a well-regulated militia composed of the body of the people trained to arms is the proper, natural, and safe defense of a free state. Therefore, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, that standing armies in time of peace should be avoided as dangerous to liberty, and that in all cases the military should be under strict subordination to and governed by the civil power. Close quote. That means the people. But first, this message came in Wednesday of this week. This is a tweet or a message. Your reporting about the growing numbers in the militia create a clear and present threat to America. as part of Congress, I'm giving you fair warning that this is the equivalent of shouting fire in a movie theater. If your reporting incites violence or can be tied to it, we will make sure to charge your editors with felonies. Well, I'm calling BS. Okay? It's worth pointing out that the message was anonymous. I'm pretty darn sure this ain't no congressman. So why cover it? Because the articles we've shared here on this program on what's happening with the rising militias have sparked an important national conversation. And quite frankly, they've obviously pissed some people off. And that's exactly what we want to do. It's to be expected when you run a media company like here at America Free Radio. We reach, I don't know how many people, honestly. I don't know. On YouTube right now, we have 50 concurrently listening. Is it the same 50 that started? I don't know. We've got a full chat room. They're donating money. They're listening, and they're spreading the word. At the end of the week, this will probably have 1,000 views. But I don't trust YouTube either. So I don't really know how many people are reaching. As the debate over red flag laws has exploded, there seems to be a growing divide between not just the left and the right, but also those who are in law enforcement and those who now see law enforcement as an overreaching arm of the government. In other words, they're big revenuers, they're big tax collectors. They're being coerced into collecting fees and guns for the politicians. And we're seeing a sudden explosion, and we're seeing a divide between those in law enforcement and those who have traditionally supported them. And that is the clear and present threat. We also believe it is an unnecessary one, and it's one that we can fix. We can fix this with dialogue. We can fix it right here on America Free Radio. That's why we've covered the growing number of people who are telling us that they're joining this militia, because they aren't the traditional, 3%ers. They're not the Proud Boys. These aren't radical people. These are doctors, lawyers, teachers, bus drivers, mechanics, welders. These are law-abiding citizens. They've never had a speeding ticket. They're the best of the best. They are able to pass a concealed carry examination by the sheriff. They're cops, both active and retired. They're veterans. And you know what? They're moms and they're daughters. They're black, they're white, they're straight, they're gay. It's been a melting pot of people who have had enough, okay? So the question remains, is law enforcement today creating a threat? And can we be charged? And the short answer is no. First of all, the First Amendment, which protects freedom of speech and press freedoms, it doesn't distinguish between being whether someone's a journalist or not. I am not a journalist. I'm an analyst. I'm a statistician. I happen to have a good voice, and I happen to enjoy what I'm doing right here, and evidently my fan base does too. So take a look at this recent Washington op-ed. It's short. I'm just going to publish this. The First Amendment gives journalists no special rights. This comes from a national security lawyer, Elizabeth Goitein. In prohibiting abridgments of the freedom of speech or of the press, it gives equal protection to those who speak, those who write, those who report, and those who publish. Close quote. That is utter nonsense. Listen, it doesn't matter whether Julian Assange is a journalist or not, okay? Under U.S. law, everybody, regardless of whether a person is a reporter or not, are protected by the same freedoms. With a successful prosecution of Julian Assange, guess what? There's nothing stopping the U.S. government from laying charges against any other American, including me, including a journalist, anybody, for receiving and publishing classified information. You know what about classified information here at America Free Radio? If it arrives here, it ain't classified anymore because you're going to know about it. Here's another quote from Senator John Wyden. He's a prominent lawmaker, member of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Here's what he said. This is not about Julian Assange. This is about the use of the Espionage Act to charge a recipient and publisher of classified information. Assange's case should set a dangerous precedent with regard to the kinds of activities that the First Amendment does not protect. A precedent that should chill even the most careful, skilled professional journalists from pursuing stories involving national security secrets. Well, it's kind of a two-edged sword there. I can just tell you, Ron, people can have secrets. Governments, no. The Washington Post reported Friday that the Obama administration considered bringing charges against Julian Assange years ago, but was concerned that the charges would prosecute conduct too similar to that of reporters at established news organizations. Be it known that Julian Assange never, ever published any fake news. Not a bit, not a comma, not a syllable of fake news. Everything he reported was true, and everything he reported was accurate, and everything he reported was incriminating. And the people that were incriminated are pissed, and that's all it boils down to. The Trump administration has brought charges against Julian Assange, who was once branded as the enemy of the people. But here's the deal. We're not sharing any classified information unless I can get my hands on it. And we're not calling for violence of any kind. But let this be a wake-up call. There are conversations that are happening right now that should have been happening a long time ago. And there are people who want to see them shut down. The first article we dropped about the growing militias was, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And we've done it before with other militias. Militia of Montana and others. When Oregon was going through the Malheur game preserve standoff with the Bundys, we talked about it. Within, I don't know, just a little bit, we started getting some bad emails. And I got one death threat. It was pretty amazing. I was a little amused. You know, he wanted to come here and remove my head from my shoulders, close quote. And I said, hey, come on up. We'll have some fun. And, of course, I never heard from him, except to say he was too far away and couldn't make it here. Am I looking over my shoulder? No. Don't worry about it. So, while Virginia is turning into a whole different kind of battleground state, we're receiving messages from people in Washington State, Oregon, Arizona, New Mexico, California, saying all of these militias, including here in Charlotte, North Carolina, they're exploding in numbers. The fastest growing one here on the north side of Charlotte, women. Yeah, female militia. They have the time to practice. They have the guns. They have the skills. And the sheriff is totally supportive of it. Now, at the same time, lawmakers are looking into what they can do to stop it. And they're starting to receive some media backing. And of course they will, because the media empire is dedicated to the destruction of America as we know it. And the only thing that is supporting America as we know it, I'm afraid to say, is the armed American. So obviously they want to get rid of us. So last week, Slate released an article. It was titled, How to Neutralize a Militia. Yeah, How to Neutralize a Militia. And they argued that every state has the legal tools to crack down on what they call us paramilitaries. Do I look paramilitary to you? Seriously? And then the question was asked in the article, why don't we use them? Why don't we use these legal tools? Well, not so long ago, it was possible to laugh off the American militia movement as a bunch of old white guys. Hey, I resemble that. and gun nuts playing army in the woods or freaking out about black helicopters. But over the past 5 years, guess what? Nobody's laughing. Nobody's laughing. After the Cowboys ran off the hired mercenaries that seized the Bundy Ranch in Nevada, and then the premeditated murder of Lavoy Finicum by Governor Kate Brown, and the attempted murder of 5 other unarmed Americans, one of them a minor, without any retribution whatsoever, we're a little worried. We're a little worried. And in Virginia, the hotbed of the controversy right now, incoming Democrats are looking to use a law passed in 1987 to shut it down. And here's what the law states. A person is guilty of unlawful paramilitary activity punishable as a Class 5 felony. Really? And what is paramilitary activity? Marching in step? Is paramilitary activity shooting cans off a fence at 150 yards? Is paramilitary activity going to a gun range and dumping 150 rounds into a paper target with your friends? Is that paramilitary activity? Is that punishable as a Class 5 felony? Well, Monday morning, law enforcement today reported on how Tazewell County, Virginia, is crafting a militia to defend the Constitution in the state Constitution. And within hours, there were thousands of emails from people all across the state, police officers, veterans, and patriotic Americans who said they're joining. But it's not just in Virginia. It's a flashpoint. Listen to this. This is a quote. This is a woman who wrote in, and I quote, "I always thought these militia folks were nuts." This is one man wrote in. "As a retired law enforcement officer, I saw them as running against law enforcement. Now I realize that they are often made up of law enforcement, and we need to bridge that divide. The nation is turning upside down, and that's why I joined in Oregon." And this woman writes, "I'm the last person you'd expect to see in a group like this. As a black millennial woman, it catches people off guard. But serving as a Marine in Iraq, I saw what happens to a nation when it descends into anarchy, and we cannot allow that to happen here." Another man wrote, "I'm a Vietnam vet, ex-police, retired, and am behind your ideas 100%. Anything I can do, I would like to help. I live in Franklin County, which voted down being a sanctuary city, being the council is Democrat. A moonshine county, giving up their guns is just plain dumb. The South gave up their flag, their statues, and now they want their guns. Sounds like Hitler's Germany," close quote. And another man, "There's already been rumblings locally about a militia being formed last month. We started carefully and quietly assembling patriotic Americans who are prepared to defend freedom at all costs. In the past day, those numbers have swelled. We have a very strong military presence here, more veterans, and both active and retired law enforcement than you can count. As of this evening, we're talking about thousands and thousands of people that have expressed an interest in being part of this movement," close quote. Here's the deal. We had about 2 minutes left in this segment. Lawmakers over in Virginia were threatening to use the National Guard if members of local law enforcement refused to enforce laws passed in the state that they felt violated the Second Amendment, which was basically, you better turn in all your AR-15s. You remember? Good old Terry McAuliffe passing the law outlawing AR-15s in the state of Virginia. There are 105,000 owners estimated of AR-15s in the state of Virginia. 0 of them got turned in. That's what sparked things in Tazewell County, which said it isn't going down without a fight. On top of calling themselves a Second Amendment sanctuary county, they're also crafting a militia as well. The Virginia County has taken the movement that has swept across the state, and it's adding other states as it goes. We're seeing Tennessee, we're seeing Kentucky, we're seeing North Carolina. Just this past Tuesday, this is December 10th, the Board of Supervisors from Tazewell County passed 2 different resolutions in light of controversy circling who are pro-gun. The first resolution declared the county to be a Second Amendment sanctuary. This is not at all surprising to see. 76 out of 95 counties, 9 out of 38 independent cities, and 13 towns have adopted Second Amendment sanctuary resolutions. The second item on the agenda was the proposition of establishing a militia in the county. It's happening. I'm saying the flashpoint is forming. We'll be right back after this.
Censorship and regulation is becoming an ever-growing problem in today's modern media. From the mainstream to YouTube and Google, the information you're looking for is buried by official narratives and propaganda. This is why TFR is 100% uncensored, unregulated, and listener-supported. The shows on TFR are not micromanaged by the station, and our hosts are free to speak their minds however they please. As such, the views and opinions expressed on our station are of those who make them. If you happen to hear anything offensive on TFR, please send us an email to toughtitty@tfrlive.com, and we'll be happy to tell you that we really don't give a damn. We stand for freedom of speech and non-censorship. If you also stand for free speech, you can go to tfrlive.com/signup and sign up for a TFR supporter pass and help us in our mission to keep the airwaves uncensored and unregulated. TFR Live, your uncensored and unregulated protection from this.
American airstrikes. Stabbing suspect charged. I'm Evan Haining. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the U.S. has carried out airstrikes on targets in Iraq and Syria, and that the attacks were a protective reaction to aggression from Iran-backed militia.
What we did was take a decisive response that makes clear what President Trump has said for months and months and months, which is that we will not stand for the Islamic Republic of Iran to take actions that put American men and women in jeopardy.
The Taliban's ruling council has agreed to a temporary ceasefire in Afghanistan to create a window in which a peace agreement with the U.S. can be signed. The Taliban did not say when the ceasefire would begin. Well, the suspect in a string of stabbings during a Hanukkah celebration at a rabbi's Monsey, New York home was found with blood all over him and smelled of bleach, a law enforcement official says. Grafton Thomas had been arrested earlier this year for menacing and reckless endangerment, according to Rockland County's senior district attorney.
New York City police found Grafton Thomas driving his car Saturday night after he crossed the George Washington Bridge into Upper Manhattan. He was brought back to Ramapo in Rockland County, New York, where he went before a judge. Dressed in a white prison jumper and looking disheveled, the 38-year-old was told he's facing 5 counts of attempted murder.
Correspondent Steve Kastenbaum. Governor Andrew Cuomo says Saturday's stabbing is the 13th act of anti-Semitism in New York State within the past 3 weeks. The death toll in this morning's church shooting in White Settlement, Texas, has risen to 3 after a victim in critical condition died. A second victim and the gunman were also killed. Congressman John Lewis, a veteran of the fight for civil rights in the 50s and 60s, has been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. But Lewis says he'll return to work after Christmas break and as he receives.
This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
welcome back. Final hour of America Free Radio tonight. We're on YouTube Live. We're also at Truth Frequency Radio at tfrlive.com. Because this is where the Truth Freaks hang out, and we are not afraid to let our Truth Freak flag fly. You just better be prepared for Full Metal Logic, because that's what you're going to get here. By the way, someone else, not someone else, I mean someone else in the chat room, that's their handle, someone else, asked me, what am I reading from? That is easy to answer, because the notes that I use every single week, I post for your download, and there are lots of links in here, lots of things that I don't read and I don't use on the program. And you can get those notes for free. All you have to do is go to tfrlive.com, tfrlive.com /X2 Radio, X squared radio, X2 Radio. And at the bottom of every single synopsis for hundreds of episodes that I've had here on this network is a link called Notes. If you click on any one of those, a calendar is going to come up of the entire year. The entire year of 2019 will come up. And every single Sunday that I've had a live program in the last year is linked there. All you have to do is click on the link and boom, you have exactly the notes that I read from. Do I read it word for word? No, not always. I improvise a lot. I do read the quotes. I do say quote, and I do say close quote. It takes me about 12 to 15 hours a week to put together the notes for this 3-hour program. Sometimes there are 30 pages, sometimes there are 45 pages of notes. Obviously, I don't get through them all. I will highlight things as I go through them, but that's what I'm reading from someone else. Now you know how to get to them, and everyone in the chat room can do that anytime. I want to talk a little bit about North Carolina, because it probably will affect your state too. We have activist judges at this again, Obama judges. Republican attempts to require photo identification to vote in North Carolina are again being thwarted by judges hearing arguments that Black and Latino voters are too stupid to bring photo ID with them. I personally think that is the most racist thing I've ever heard in my life. But I swear to God, this is what the lawyers are saying is the reason why North Carolina cannot require photo ID. A federal court announced last week U.S. District Judge, and her name is Loretta Biggs with 2 G's, will formally block a photo ID requirement scheduled to begin in 2020. By the way, in 2018, during our election here in this state, we felt it so necessary to have photo ID that we voted, 55% of the state voted for a constitutional amendment. Yeah, a constitutional amendment to the Constitution of North Carolina. That doesn't happen very often. We required a photo ID. Now, unless the upcoming preliminary injunction is successfully appealed, the requirement will be halted until a lawsuit filed by the state's NAACP and others is resolved. Thursday's short-written notice from the federal court in Winston-Salem previewed Biggs's order because state election officials were planning to expand efforts to educate voters about the ID law within just a few days. It was getting ready to launch because the new year's coming. Although the mandate would be carried out beginning with the March 3rd primary, the requirement would actually start in just a few weeks with mail-in absentee ballot filers who also would have to provide an ID copy. The mandate identified several types of qualifying photo IDs and allowed people lacking one to get a free ID card. To fill out a form while voting explaining their reasonable impediment to obtaining one. GOP leaders in charge of the legislature, which thank God we still have a GOP majority in the House and the Senate. We got this leftist crook, Roy, as our governor, ousting Pat McCrory, who's a friend and a honest man and a hard worker, former mayor of Charlotte. Now he has a talk radio program in Charlotte. But he was defeated with 30,000 votes that were added during what was called same-day registration. That is to say, on election day, if you weren't registered to vote, you could walk into a poll and you could register to vote and you could vote right then, right there, just like that. And normally what they do is you register to vote and then they send you a voter registration card, and that's what you use. But of course, all that was thrown out by a Obama judge in North Carolina in 2018. So let's see here. GOP leaders in charge of the legislature have been trying for most of the decade to advance voter ID, saying that more than 30 states require it and it builds confidence in elections. Data show voter impersonation is rare. However, the voting pool, currently 6.8 million registered voters in this state, is critical. In a closely divided presidential battleground state where statewide races are often competitive between the major parties. Voter ID was actually carried out in the 2016 primary, but it was appealed and it was struck down in July of 2016. So by the time the election came, voter ID was not required. It was crazy. Republicans refused to support the racism of the Democrat Party so strongly that they proposed a constitutional amendment in 2018, which passed, as I said, with a 55% vote. Lawyers for the state and local NAACP chapters told Biggs in a court brief that the latest version of voter ID says that minorities are not smart enough to present a photo ID to vote. Wow. I mean, just wow. Democrats, I'm sorry, I got that wrong. Lawyers for the state told Biggs in a court brief that the latest version of the voter ID says that minorities are smart enough to vote, are smart enough to a photo ID, and the Democrats vehemently disagreed with that. The new rules allow additional government IDs to meet the mandate, including public and private university cards. The ID must meet the new federal guidelines for a safe ID, which means it was issued with a certified copy of a U.S. birth certificate. The actual reasons for Biggs issuing the injunction and whether the legislature could pass a law altering the rules to resolve her concerns won't be known until the formal order is released. State NAACP President, the Reverend Anthony Spearman, praised Biggs' decision, calling the 2018 constitutional amendment a hardship of Black and Latino people who do not have the intelligence to obtain a qualifying ID for voting. I mean, this is just utterly racist. The Democrats in the state of North Carolina are unbelievably racist here. I've never heard anything so racist in all my life. Republican House Speaker Tim Moore of Cleveland County criticized the notice Friday as a last-minute attempt by an activist Obama federal judge to overturn the will of North Carolina voters. He said the ruling should be immediately appealed by the State Board of Elections, which is a defendant in the case. The board is composed of 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans, all appointed by Socialist Democrat Governor Roy Cooper. Although a voter ID opponent, Cooper is also named a lawsuit defendant because of his position as governor. So you see what's going on in our state. Watch for it in your state. All right. This story I kind of like. I put it together. I call it the Burisma Blues. It doesn't get any bluer than this, let me tell you. If I could sing the Burisma Blues, I would do it right now. Steve Hilton, you know who he is, right? He's a Fox News commentator who over the weekend had connected some Burisma corruption dots. And this is what he said. Connecticut U.S. Senator Donang Dick Blumenthal, his association with the tangled knot of corruption in Ukraine is this. I quote, "We cross-referenced the Senate co-sponsors of Ed Markey's Ukraine gas bill with a list of Democrats whom Burisma lobbyist David Leiter routinely gave money to, and found another one of the most sanctimonious of them all, none other than Donang Dick, Senator Richard Blumenthal." How about that? Doesn't get any bluer than that. Hilton first rolls out the cast of characters. Are you ready for this? These are names you already know from the mainstream news. Devon Archer, the longtime business partner of Joe Biden's son, Hunter, joined the board of directors of Burisma, a natural gas producer in Ukraine, sometime in April of 2014, right in the middle of Hillary Clinton's reign as Secretary of State. Soon after, Archer had a private meeting with the Vice President Biden at the White House late into the night, according to White House records. And guess what? 2 days later, probably the weekend, 2 days later, Hunter Biden, Vice President Joe Biden's son, also joined the Burisma board. And 3 days later, Vice President Biden went to Ukraine with promises of U.S. taxpayer cash, $1 billion for the Ukraine gas industry. And that's where he held them hostage. That's where he said, you're not getting the $1 billion unless you drop this investigation. Hilton noted that bank records taken from an unrelated FBI raid of Devon Archer's office in 2016. By the way, Joe Biden was not vice president. He was vice president in 2016. So listen closely. You show that Biden and Archer's firm, Rosemont Seneca, received monthly payments from Burisma with sums of over $150,000 and sometimes as high as $220,000 a month. How about that? Hilton speculates that Hunter Biden may have been more than a placeholder. Burisma's founder, a shady character who's called Mykola Zlochevsk, used his time as Ukraine's environment minister to hand out gas licenses from which Burisma would end up profiting. Amazingly, though charges of corruption and embezzlement had been swirling around Zlochevsk for years, he managed to escape prosecution. Is it possible that Ukrainian prosecutors feared to touch Zlochevsk because Hunter, the son of the Vice President of the United States, was on the board of Burisma? Hunter's presence in the lap of corruption, Hilton reasoned, may have signaled Ukrainian prosecutors that Zlochevsk had the backing of American Vice President, who was acting like some kind of imperial consul in Ukraine. His word was basically law. By the way, in the chat room, I've had another amazing contribution by David Caldwell for $20. What can you tell us about the numbers of congressional seats being shifted from rural states, like mine, to states whose populations have swelled due to non-citizen residents? I'm doing a little bit of research on that. I have made a couple of statements on that in the past, but I want to get my facts straight. It appears what has happened is when Michael Bloomberg. Michael Bloomberg's net worth is about $52 billion. He also is the owner of Bloomberg News, which is a news seat that processes a lot of stuff. They're like Associated Press. He funded an organization called Pueblos Sin Fronteras, which means countries without borders. And it's his money and his propaganda that caused this forced migration from El Salvador, from Honduras, from Guatemala, from southern Mexico. Hundreds of thousands of people walked thousands of miles with nothing but the clothes on their back, paid for and propagandized by Michael Bloomberg's organization. They made their way to the U.S. border, and he knew that they could not get across the border without going through the cartels. The cartels charge an enormous amount of money to these people. Sometimes they don't have it. And so what they have to do is they have to sign a contract with the cartels. Once they're released into the United States, those cartels follow them. They have people everywhere in the United States. And if they don't send their payments back, they're killed. They are hunted down and killed. It is a very violent organization that Michael Bloomberg, oh, yeah, by the way, he's running for president. Yeah, that money is what was used to bring these people into the country. Now, I'm going to answer David Caldwell's question, who just donated $20. When these people hit the border, they don't scatter. They don't scatter like ants just heading out everywhere. No. They're managed. They're managed. Once they get into this country, buses and planes and organizations are brought together, and they move these people in blocks. One example is a small town. I believe it is in Virginia, might be in Pennsylvania. Prior to this forced migration, the town had about a 15% non-English speaking community. They had a median income of about $36,000, which is not bad for that rural of an area. And they were current on all of their state obligations. Today, that same community is now 70% non-English speaking. In other words, Spanish is the primary language in the town. All of the city elected positions are held by Hispanics. English is not spoken in the government buildings, hardly at all. The median income has dropped in half, and the county is now behind on its tax obligations. And what happened was these immigrants were moved as a block, as a community, and settled on purpose in this town, specifically to push the demographic to poor Hispanic. They basically moved El Salvador to this town in Pennsylvania. It might even be in Virginia. So obviously what's happened is the representation in that town is going to shift. And here's how. Because when the 2020 census happens, you remember President Trump tried to add a question to the census. And that question was, are you a citizen of the United States? Fair enough, right? Are you or are you not a citizen of the United States? The census workers should be able to ask that. And they should be able to give an honest answer. The Democrats refused to allow that question. Of course, they have the majority in Congress, and they blocked it. They blocked it. And of course, federal judges, activist judges, who are Obama judges, stepped up and also filed injunctions to stop that from being added to the census. Why? Because the Democrats don't want citizens counted. They want residents counted. There's a huge difference, because this town in Pennsylvania and David Caldwell's town is being loaded up on purpose by Michael Bloomberg, who's running for president right now, and organizations like his, specifically so that they could load up the census with residents and thus be able to generate another 23 to 26 more congressmen nationwide because our population has changed. But the population has not just gone up, it's also gone left. It's gone left because of this strategic placement of immigrants, just like they did in Minnesota. That's why we have the congresswoman from Somalia. We have Ilhan Omar, who is the congresswoman from Somalia, representing Somalia and the terrorist groups in Congress. That's why. Because 70,000 Somalis were moved as a group into Minnesota. And it was only a matter of time before someone in there became a naturalized citizen, and the local community promoted that person and put them in Congress. And there's nothing anyone can do about it. It would take a 2/3 vote of Congress to expel her from Congress, and that ain't happening. That ain't happening. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Rashida Tlaib and Ariana Presley, they're there to stay because the Democrats want them to stay. If you want them gone, you're going to have to vote them out. And you know how to vote them out? Yeah, you got to go vote against 70,000 Somalis in Minnesota. And guess what? It ain't happening. So the 23 to 26 more congressmen that are going to be added, right now we have 435. So we'll be going up to 461 or 458, depends on how many are added. And those extra congressmen are all going to be leftist socialist Democrats. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it's going to be. The only way it can be stopped is if, when the census is started, that the question, are you a citizen, is added to the census. And in that case, what would happen is you'd have two different counts. You would have a resident count and you would have a citizen count. And you already know what would happen. It would be the citizen count that would be used to assign congressional representation. And that is precisely what the Democrats do not want, because they're trying to destroy America. And this is the only way that they can do it. Now, so that does that answer your question? I think it's pretty thorough. I think it answers your question, David Caldwell. Thank you so much for the $20 donation. And Trolley Forever says maybe this is why. What is it? Sarah P. Caltech phrase was, what do you know, Joe? Yeah, exactly. It's not that I'm a poor reader, it's that display is way over there and it's on my bad side and I can't read it from here, so I have to squint, and I don't want to do that with all you watching. Yes, David Caldwell says, yes, it answers this question. Okay, so now we're all aware. So I want to just touch on this Hunter Biden thing just a little bit more, because one of the principal beneficiaries of Leiter's largesse was then Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts, by the way, just outside of Boston. He's the author of a letter to Obama beseeching the president to leverage the full resources and expertise of the U.S. government to assist Ukraine in improving its energy efficiency, increasing its domestic production, and reforming its energy markets. And Vice President Joe Biden was put in charge of the effort. Now, former Senator Markey was the Senate sponsor of the Green New Deal. He wants to shut down gas production in America, but he wants to build gas production in Ukraine. Go figure. He personally intervened with the Obama administration to send your tax dollars to boost Ukraine's gas production, and he didn't do it just once. Archer, Hunter Biden's crony, funneled Burisma money to Richard Blumenthal, Da Nang Dick, 3 times in 2013. The next year, guess what happened? Good old Dick Blumenthal returned the favor sound like a quid quo pro to you? By backing legislation that would directly benefit Burisma and Hunter Biden. Man, it doesn't get any more crappy than that. Ed Marcus has yet to call for the impeachment of Blumenthal on grounds of treason, but partisan hack Dick Blumenthal should recuse himself from any and all attempts to frustrate the bar during a long-awaited investigation. We'll be right back after this.
Hey everyone, it's Chris Gio, founder of Truth Frequency Radio and host of Beyond the Veil. The mainstream media and establishment are running scared right now, and they've prominently featured truthfrequencyradio.com as number 89 on the federal government's hit list, also known as the fake news list, which is essentially a list of sites slated for censorship on Facebook, YouTube, Google, and other social media. Now is the time for you to get involved. Share your favorite TFR shows far and wide on forums and social media. Tell your friends and family about your favorite shows. If you're a business owner, get in touch with us to feature your product or service right here on TFR. And if you haven't done so already, become a TFR supporter now and get unlimited commercial-free downloads in high quality. Visit truthfrequencyradio.com/signup. Thank you for making TFR the leader in independent and uncensored talk radio. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
If you have hard water, the lime scale not only leaves white spots, it clogs pipes and breaks down appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars in energy and wear. Eliminate lime scale and other water issues like brown staining and bad odors with HydroCare water products, available from Wave Home Solutions. Wave's affordable water systems don't use salts or chemicals. You'll love the way your water tastes, smells, and looks. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Dowsing is the ancient science of finding water and metal underground. Albert Einstein said that dowsing was tapping into earth energies which modern science as yet does not understand. Diamonds, silver, gold, and platinum objects have all been found using dowsing. And now, for the first time on film, we visit the pyramids, Stonehenge, and ancient sites, dowsing for buried treasure and tapping into this mysterious earth energy.
The Enigma Channel. Intelligent television for planet Earth. EnigmaTV.com.
You are now tuned into the Truth Frequency.
Your protection from deception. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
I've been waiting for this moment since my first breath in. Never would have thought I'd be afraid to begin, but here I am, the edge of the water, wondering if I can swim. All the days pass through, but in this final moment I'm still chasing the truth. I want an explanation why I can't stay here forever in my youth. And if I press on, will you wait for me forever? Or would it be wrong to ask you to come away?
so much for being here at America Free Radio, the last program of the year 2019. Next time you hear me will be, let's see, it'll be the first Sunday in 2020. We'll begin the Roaring 20s together. I placed this picture up here because those of you that belong to the 70s page on Facebook, we were posting cars that we had when we were in high school. And this picture that you see underneath me comes from our high school newspaper. That's me standing on the street and my friend Jim Helsper sitting on the wing of a 1970 Plymouth Superbird. So that was our ride in high school. And it was one of the fastest cars in school. And I had a lot of fun with it. So hats off to Jim, hats off to Plymouth for making such a great car, and we had a lot of fun in that car. Let me tell you, did a lot of street racing. We had some fun. So that's it. All right, let's get back to it. I want to cover this really quickly, and then I'm going to shift gears. All climate change roads lead to socialism. A scientific paper published by a team of Australian researchers has apparently revealed a startling find. Scientists at the Permanent Service for Mean Sea Level, that's PSMSL, they've been adjusting historical data regarding tide levels in the Indian Ocean. Surely not. Yes, their highly questionable activities have depicted rapidly rising seas, but the truth is that there's no reason to be alarmed at all. Scientists have found that sea levels are quite stable, and they have been for the entire 20th century. To put it simply, these PSMSL scientists have been arbitrarily changing their data in order to create the illusion of a problem that does not exist. According to the Australian research team, sea levels in the Indian Ocean have remained stable for many decades. Dr. Albert Parker and Dr. Clifford Ollier recently published their astounding research in the journal Earth Systems and Environment. Their extensive research gives an in-depth look at how this massive deception was undertaken. I don't want to talk too much about that because I don't want to get lost in the weeds about that. What I want to get to is the truth from the climate activists' own mouths. So the following is not edited in any way. It comes straight from the climateandcapitalism.com website. This is the core of climate change power in the world today. Now, these are the words of the cause of every revolt you see in the world today, from Lebanon to France to the USA. Climate change is being used as a purgatory for the human race if we do not obey their God. Now, I'm going to read this to you. This is a quote from their website. A lot has been written on why capitalism, by its very nature, cannot tackle or stop climate change. The purpose of this article is not to repeat those arguments, but to make the positive case for socialism as necessary to deal with this existential crisis for humanity. Most of the climate and environmental movements support the idea of a just transition, but only socialism, with its commitment to ending class privilege and inequality, can actually deliver this. In any society where there are billionaires alongside homeless people and immense divisions between rich countries and poor countries as a result of imperialism and globalized capitalism, all attempts at transitioning to ending carbon emissions, even where they are made, will inevitably be structured and blighted by this inequality. The rich will look to protect themselves and their lifestyles in gated communities in the uplands while trying to shift the burden of paying for the transition into ordinary people. Take the example of transport. If, as is absolutely essential, we get people out of the private car and onto free public transport, what will be the consequence of this? Under capitalism, it will mean the bosses of the giant auto companies, Volkswagen, Toyota, General Motors, etc., will see which way the wind is blowing, loot their own companies, and put their proceeds in their Swiss bank accounts while throwing their hundreds of thousands of workers on the scrap heap. Under socialism, the auto industry CEOs and big shareholders could be relieved of their ill-gotten gains while the rundown of the industry is managed in a way that retrains and reemploys the workers in socially useful work. For instance, building wind turbines or buses or trains. The same applies to flying. If air travel were to be reduced, as it must be to save the planet, under capitalism, this would most likely be done by a price mechanism, so that executives would continue to get round the world to their conferences while ordinary people had to give up their holidays to Spain and the Greek islands. That, in turn, would mean redundancy for airline workers and crisis in the Spanish and Greek tourist industry. Again, only socialist planning could solve this. Climate justice on a global scale is totally unthinkable without socialism. 500 years ago, the different continents and regions of the world were roughly at the same level of economic development. For example, China was every bit as economically advanced as Europe, and India was seen as a rich country. Centuries of capitalism, slavery, and imperialism, with the latter growing out of the former, created an immensely uneven world. Industrial production, wealth, and power became concentrated in the so-called advanced West, essentially Europe and North America, with poverty, starvation, and lack of industrial development concentrated in Asia, Africa, Latin America, and now usually called the Global South. So I want to read that line to you one more time, and then I'm going to move on, because I'm just about to lose my dinner. Climate justice on a global scale is totally unthinkable without socialism. There's more. I don't have time to go into it. I really don't want to, because I'm getting kind of a rash right here from reading it. All right, let's talk about something else. I call this the future view. All right, just chilling out just a little bit here. That really had me going. Did it have you going too? Man, that's right off their own website, folks. All right. The future view. You know, the present, like right now, the present is often confused with the now. And I maintain in my book, Remembering the Future, that there is no such thing as the now. If there was, we would be able to measure it, and we should be able to tell how fast it's going or what its location is in the universe, but we can't. So we're pretty darn sure the now doesn't actually really exist. Human consciousness is not really capable of standing still. It just isn't. It does not exist simply in the now. It exists over a spread of time, okay? Involving the past and the future. And it's not like a flash from a camera. It's more like a set of headlights splashed over a highway. It can point, forward-ish, or it can point backward-ish, or it can illuminate both at the same time. The only difference between looking forward and looking backward is really the field of view. Like using binoculars with a narrow field of view, say 120 feet, as opposed to a field of view of 500 feet. The first is really good for bird watching, And the second is good for watching football from the nosebleed seats. That's the field of view. See, time is not really a straight line, but it's rather an expanding sphere, okay? The further out from the present we go, the more we can consider, by the square of the distance, to be precise. But when we look back, it's a little bit different. It's much easier to figure things out and make slight adjustments than when we try looking to the future. And I maintain that the present is much more easily negotiated when viewed from the future. You understand what I'm saying? Hindsight is 20/20. Well, yeah, when you're looking back, you go, man, I wish I would have done it that way, or I wish I would have invested my money in that, or I wish I would have learned that, or I wish I would have stood here or instead of there, because you have a viewpoint from the future, which is the present. So that's the skill that I teach. The ability to treat the present more like the past makes it much easier to get things right the first time, don't you think? Say the right thing, do the right thing, but even more than that, you do both of those things at the same time. And that's much easier with hindsight, don't you think? So why don't you join me on January 11th? And you can go to my website, brooksagnew.com, click on the webinars link on the far left. There are 3 dates in there. There's January 11th, there's a date in February, there's a date in March, and I'll add other dates as the year goes on. But I think you should start the year out right. Okay? It starts at noon Eastern, which is 9 o'clock on the West Coast. Pretty doable. It's a Saturday. I want you to learn how the mathematics and physics of the soul obeys these rules. There are rules of resonance, rules of interference that we can use to manifest what we most desire. You are obviously not achieving your desires. You didn't do it in 2019. You didn't get it done. You got close. You got distracted. You camped. You gave up. You ran out of money. A million excuses. Time for excuses to be done. You might as well put me on your team. All you have to do is go to brooksagnew.com and sign up today. I promise you it's going to be the best $47 you ever spent on yourself. So let's get that done. They've put a new telescope out. Well, they've been working on it for a while. This thing is... It's big. It's really big. It's massive compared to telescopes that we normally put in space. And it ain't close. It's called the James Webb Space Telescope. It's currently scheduled to launch in March of 2021. It should have already been up there, but it's been delayed. It's had billions of dollars spent over budget. Now, while it's easy to argue that time and money has been wasted, I heard all that argument. I get that. NASA is a big bureaucratic, black hole of money. This observatory will be the premier and undisputed champion of infrared wavelengths, giving us unparalleled access to corners of the universe that we have never seen before, inaccessible to us. Because everything we have is either on Earth or too close to Earth. We're lost in the infrared glow of Earth. If we want to learn new things about everything from the first galaxies to the chance for life on other planets, it's roughly $9.7 billion for the James Webb Telescope. It's our only hope, I'm telling you. Now, while the James Webb Space Telescope is heralded as the successor to the Hubble Space Telescope, it kind of isn't, because Hubble has given us great pictures. I mean, awesome wallpapers, right? It's a fantastic visible light reflecting telescope. It's done great things, but it's not even in the same class, because the Hubble is an optical telescope. It captures wavelengths of light that we can see that make a picture like stars or a galaxy or formation of stars. It's been tremendous. It's been great, but it's not the wavelength that we're looking at here. The James Webb Space Telescope is different because it will be observing entirely in the infrared, barely scratching the deepest possible reds that a human can see. In other words, this telescope will be studying a universe that is just not visible to us. You put your eye to the telescope, and you can't see this stuff because it's not in the visible range. Human eye cannot pick it up. Digital camera is not going to pick it up. This is different. One of the major reasons is that this telescope is designed to be an infrared scope. That infrared astronomy is, and generally, really hard to do from here, because it's sort of like trying to take your temperature when you're in a sauna. Okay, you can't differentiate the temperature of the sauna from your body temperature because you're in a hot box, right? You want your body to be the source of heat, not the sauna. And that's exactly what's happening. So, light pollution is the bane of astronomers. You don't want to go out with your telescope in Manhattan. You don't want to go out underneath the street light outside your house and try to set up a telescope, because it's going to slam your pupils shut and you're not going to be able to see anything. You got to get out in the dark. When we're out on a dark sky event, we only use red lights to walk around. Why? Because the red light doesn't slam your pupils shut, and where your eye has to start all over again and take a look at the stars. And infrared light pollution comes from many different places. Basically, anything warm, which is basically everything. The human bodies generate about 100 watts of infrared radiation, easily visible from the sky. The Earth itself is pretty warm, glowing strongly in infrared bands. Even the telescope itself is putting off temperature if it's at room temperature. If it's on the ground, it's obviously in room temperature unless we, bathe it in liquid nitrogen or something. But it's not that we can't do infrared astronomy from the ground. It's just that it's frustratingly hard. Hence, space. We got to put this telescope into space. Now, this telescope isn't going to be in orbit. Nope. It's not going to be out there with the weather satellites at 23,500 miles. It's not going to be orbiting Earth. You're not going to be able to see it. This telescope is going to be placed 1 million miles away, way outside of the moon's orbit. 1 million miles away. We've got to get it away from our warm infrared glowing planet. But even still, there's the sun to contend with. Ever sit outside on a nice summer day, feeling the warmth of our sun on your skin? Well, that's infrared radiation. That heat on your skin is pumped out by the bucketful. And even 1 million miles from Earth, the sun is still a bit toasty. To combat this, the designers of the Infrared Space Telescope have a couple of options. The most common choice is to use an active cooling system. Chill down the telescope to the temperatures needed to properly observe the infrared wavelengths. That's great, but it's heavy. Okay? It's utilized by previous infrared space telescopes, but it does limit their lifespans. No more coolant, no more astronomy, right? When it runs out of coolant, you're done. So instead, this telescope is going to deploy an umbrella. It's going to deploy a giant 72-foot big umbrella. It's about, not round, it's about 72 feet by 36 feet. And it's going to be made of layers of extremely reflective material like gold and silver, things like that. And it's going to be thinner than a human hair, easily carried and easily deployed. Now, this is going to be a sun shield. It's going to keep the telescope in the shade, which is somewhere south of minus 370 degrees. That's pretty dang cold. Also, just for fun, one of the instruments on board will be chilled with an active cooling system to minus 433 degrees. That's minus 258 C, which will allow it to access some even longer infrared wavelengths. All in all, this thing is big. In fact, it's so big that it shouldn't even be able to fit on a rocket. Besides the gargantuan sun shield, the primary mirror will be 21 feet across, which is far wider than any rocket fairing currently in use. Duct taping the mirror to the side of the rocket isn't exactly a workable solution. Nobody's going to go out there a million miles in a space shuttle and set this thing up. So it has to be tucked in and folded into the rocket, along with the folded up sun shield and the rest of the telescope. If everything goes right, just a few days after launch, this telescope's going to be heading to its observing point, unfold, and it's going to start staring. And what it will see will be, and I'm not using this word lightly, it's going to be remarkable. It's going to be like turning the lights on in a room of pitch black. It's going to be like turning a flashlight on in a cave. One of the main targets will be the early universe, of course, when our cosmos was just a few 100 million years old. The first stars, the first galaxies to appear, and the cosmic scene blazed brightly in the visible spectrum. But over the course of the last 13 billion years, they got kind of dim, they got kind of far away, and that's right in the sweet spot of this telescope's design parameters. We don't have any images at all of the earliest galaxies or stars because we can't see them. Closer to home, it'll be studying anything cool in the cosmos, from photoplanetary disks, protoplanetary disks around newborn stars, to molecular clouds, comets, Kuiper belt objects, and more. And it will use a specialized device to block out light from distant stars, enabling the observatory to snap pictures of any objects orbiting those stars, like planets. Those planets will be glowing in the infrared, just like ours does. And from that distance, we should be able to see them. The light from those planets will be modified by the chemicals and elements in their atmospheres, and we're going to be able to see these planets, which means we could find places to expand the human race. I think it's exciting. Now, yes, we're talking about 50, 75, 100 years from now, but you know what? That's going to be here just like that. I won't be, but you will be. You might be. Listen, I like you coming every week here to America Free Radio. We talk about science, we talk about political science, economic science, we talk about science, engineering, and I will answer any question that you put into the chat room. And I've been doing this now for 15 years. I hope to be here for another 40 years. Of course, by then we'll be in much more amazing media than we have now. But this is free speech. This is open minds. This is where we go, and this is where we've been. And I'm so glad that you're my friends out there. And I look forward to you being with me in the new year, in 2020. And next week, we'll upload the new calendar. In fact, the new calendar is already uploaded. We've already modified the menu. So you should be able to access the 2020 calendar. If you want the notes from tonight, there are a lot of things I didn't get a chance to cover. They're going to be in there at tfrlive.com/X2 Radio. All of the weeks in the entire year have the same calendar. So if you access that calendar, you can download the notes from any one of the weeks. They're all up there. I host them on my own server, so they're always there. Thank you so much for being part of America Free Radio for the last year, and we will see you next year. Go out and look for the good in people and help it to grow a little every day. And before long, you will have saved the planet. This is the key. This is the key to making world peace. Remember, 2020 is an election year. We have 29 days in February to make up for the slightly advanced rotation of the Earth, so it'll reset the clock as far as the sun goes. But there are a lot of great things that are going to happen in an election year. A lot of money frees up. A lot of entrepreneurs are going to make it. If you're in this business, you're going to succeed. I promise you. We're going to be here right with you. My name is Brooks Agnew. This is X Squared Radio here at the America Free Radio Studio, saying peace, Earth Explorers, and have a great, great new year.
Whoa!